Which part of Tamil Nadu?
Salem.
Then, cool. Very good.
Where are you from? Like, if you don't mind.
I am from Haryana.
Oh, nice. Which part?
Yeah. It's a place called Rewari, which is 90 kilometers from Delhi.
Okay.
But my parents are now settled in Jaipur, Rajasthan. So
Nice.
I consider myself if somebody was to ask my hometown, I say Jaipur because that's where I usually go when I go back to India.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's get started. Yeah. Uh, Hi everyone. Like, so today we'll be continuing our alumni podcast sessions with one of our alumni from the batch of 2008 to 2012. He was a CS undergrad at IIT Patna, and right now he's a associate professor at Penn State. Hi, Dr. Amulya Yadav. Yeah.
Hi, yes. How are you?
Yeah.
And please, you don't need to call me Dr. Amulya. The Amulya is fine. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. That's great. Yeah. So, what were your research interests, and like what drove you to get started with research? Like, and when did you start doing all this?
So, what were my research interests? I mean, I think the answer to that was it was certainly not clear to me during my undergrad. Yeah, I mean, I think the first time I started doing research was in the at the end of my third semester in IIT Patna. There was the winter break, and I started doing some research over those 15-20 days of winter break with Professor Somnath Tripathi. Uh, and I did something, didn't really work out, meaning I was not able to do anything useful, even despite sir's best efforts. So that semester got ended. Then at the end of my fourth semester, so during semesters, in the middle of semesters, I was not really doing anything. At least so I tried this initial research experience at the end of my third semester. When that didn't nothing panned out, I stopped doing any more research up until the end of my fourth semester, end of 2 years, at which point I got an internship at the University of Houston.
Oh, nice.
Uh, and that was a research internship there. I was working with Professor Rakesh Verma. And yeah, there it was basically at the end of it, what I was doing in my internship is I was doing manual annotation for a data set. There was a data set for which contained PubMed abstracts,
Okay.
and I was supposed to annotate all of those abstracts and see which of those abstracts contained words that have something to do with chemical terrorism.
Okay.
So something, some. So that is what they were trying to build a classifier for. That by looking at the abstract, can you automatically identify papers that were related to topic X, basically? And in that pipeline, my job as an intern was to do manual annotation, do some script writing to generate these annotations en masse
Okay.
for very not very interesting work, at least in my own. Yeah, so these were formative experiences of a research project, and so it was good. I mean, it was good exposure. I got to know how American universities worked. That was my first time being in America. So that was my second instance. Then once again I came back, didn't really do any research in my then end of year three, I got another internship, this time at USC, uh, as part of the Indo-US Viterbi program, which you've been a part of as well. And yeah, there I worked in Dr. Bhaskar Krishnamachari's lab, who's in the electrical engineering department at USC, and he was one of his PhD students was working on echolocation, which was effectively, so the idea was GPS allows you to pinpoint your location and for you to track your movements, etc., outside when you're walking around in the world. But GPS stops working if you're moving within the confines of a building. uh, so so what they had done is they were using wireless sensor networks
Okay.
uh, to track a person's movement. So there was an entire grid of wireless sensor uh, devices that were placed at the roof of our ceiling, in the ceiling of our building in USC at that point of time. And as I would be carrying, I would. So my job was to implement an algorithm that could do this echolocation. Uh, so I would code up my algorithm, then to see how it would work. I would take one sensor device and I would take a walk around the corridor, and then come back to see what path had been generated on my computer, and then I see it was garbage, and then I try again. So basically, so as you can see, all of these things, in terms of in trying to get to your answer of what were my research interests. My first project that I did with Professor Tripathi at IIT Patna was in cryptography. My second project was machine learning related, but I was not the one who was doing the main machine learning. I was more handling the data pre-processing, etc. And then the third project was something completely different, wireless sensor networks. And in all of these, yeah, so in some sense, what I was interested in, and in fact, whether I was interested in research, I didn't really know at this point of time. So I finished my internship. It was good. It was a very good experience. And then my bachelor's BTech thesis project started with several professors, with Dr. Shuparna Saha, Dr. Asif Iqbal, Dr. Ashok Sairam, who's moved to IIT Guwahati now. Uh, yeah, so I was working on intrusion detection. So this was a machine learning project, uh, and it was good, and we got a good paper out of it. And yeah, I mean, frankly, at that point of time, it was not that I knew I wanted to be a researcher. So insofar as answering a question about research interests, what I was really interested in was still unclear to me. Uh, this is how I started, though. This is how these were the first set of research experiences that I got. Uh, I did not have that much initiative to conduct research by myself, even when there was no BTech project. For example, I was not chasing professors in the middle of a semester. Apart from these experiences, I did not get any other exposure. Uh, but yeah, so that's how I got started. But my research experiences now, I think they're well formed. I can talk more about that. But yeah, certainly before I started my PhD, I had no idea of whether I wanted to do research at all in the first place, let alone knowing what I was interested in.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, you don't, if you want to explore like certain topics, you don't need to be kind of knowing everything beforehand. You just kind of explored what you kind of liked or what are the opportunities were. I think a lot of people ignore the base work, like which you have, or groundworks you have to like kind of work upon during the first 2 years, like of your undergrad. Like people, they think that they just when they start getting into projects and will start working with professors, they will start publishing papers and on. Like they just skip all of the grunt work part. Like I think that is also an essential character building aspect of whatever you are doing, as well as like, yeah, it kind of makes the foundation of whatever you are trying to do in the next couple of years of your life. Yeah.
Certainly. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
And like, so what would you suggest a fresher should do? Like, say he's in his first or second year. Like, what do you think he should be doing if he wants to explore stuff? Like, how should he approach a professor or some sort of stuff like that? Yeah.
So I think professors at IIT Patna then and now, I mean, because a lot of them are still the same, they're very friendly. So what I would suggest to a fresher is, and in fact, I gave a talk at the freshers symposium or something at IIT Patna a couple of years ago, where I said that what you can do as a fresher, or in fact, even if you're not a fresher, is to make well-informed decisions, right? And what does that mean? Well, after you graduate, you'll either want to get a job, or you might want to go for higher studies, or you might want to open a startup, etc. Right? So those are the three different possibilities. And as a fresher, it is in your best interests to try to plan to get all of these experiences before you graduate,
Okay.
right? Which means you should get an industry internship at some point. It does not need to happen in year one, but it should happen at some point of time, right? Similarly, if you are in if you want to explore research, how should you approach a professor? Basically, let's say you're taking a course as a fresher, and you can pretty much approach a professor that who's teaching you, and say, I'm looking for research opportunities, what do you have? And then if they say something, it's completely okay saying, if you say that I don't find this interesting, or maybe you try it for a while and then you realize you still don't find it interesting. So yeah, that is where I would start. I mean, as a fresher, if you're still learning how the college operates, you're and you don't really know who all are the professors who are working in your department. You don't know all the professors to begin with. You at least know the professors who are teaching you, right? And what I would do is, I would walk up to them after class, or schedule a meeting with them and ask them to for research opportunities if they have any. And more often than not, professors at IIT Patna, I can vouch for that from my own personal experience. They'd be more than happy to involve you in a research project. And then it is upon you to realize whether you find that interesting or not, right?
Yeah.
You might not find one research with one professor interesting. You might find research with another professor interesting. So this is part of it. Also is finding. So this is effectively a search, right? All of your 4 years is effectively a search for what do you want to do after your 4 years, right? What is it that is going to motivate you? And this is a really hard question, right? It's not even so I don't want to tell freshers that you're supposed to have an answer for this by the end of your bachelor's. I didn't have an answer for this by the end of my PhD also, right? So this takes time. So yeah, so that is what I would suggest. And by all means, I encourage all people in undergrads to try to start startups, even if they are just for a couple of weeks and then they die down. You start talking and then nothing happens. That's still fine. You should at least be thinking in that direction. uh, yeah, I mean, it's undergrad is basically about getting as many experiences as possible,
Okay.
in all three spheres of professional life that you could pursue after this, either as a graduate student or as a corporate employee or as a startup, a person in a startup. uh, you should try as much as possible to see what would suit you best. And the only way you can do that, as opposed to choosing blindly, is to get data, and to try out these things and see whether you like them or you don't like them, and then you can accordingly decide for yourself. You'd be in a better position to choose what you want to do after your 4 years.
Yeah, and I also believe that like the first couple of attempts always end in failures. Like they
Certainly,
actually don't go anywhere. Like even
certainly.
in my second semester, end of my second semester, I started working with Dr. Asif Iqbal. Like, and you know how the grad students at IIT Patna are, like working with them is a bit difficult. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so doing all like kind of that was that like the project kind of went nowhere at the end of like end of my third semester, but I still whatever I learned from the project was really helpful in the next 1-2 years, like during
Mm-hmm.
my internship at USC, or normally while I was working with Dr. Shripana here. Like, but
Right.
that I think that some sort of failures are necessary at the start of your undergrad so that you can explore stuff whether
Absolutely.
you want to do it or not.
Absolutely. And failure shouldn't be thought about too seriously in
Yeah,
in in in, in undergrad, right? I mean,
yeah,
your
yeah,
kids having fun. That's how you should think about it. And so what? I mean, the good thing is you'll fail in groups. You're not the only one who's failing. Your friend
yeah,
right next to you is also failed. So you get sympathy from that. That okay, I have somebody to
mm.
look upon. That okay. So that grief is shared.
Yeah,
uh, yeah. So certainly, you're very right. Failure is inevitable,
yeah,
but yeah, it's about trying to explore as much as possible.
yeah,
It's certainly not the case. I mean, if you're lucky, it might, but the first thing that you start working in is not going to be the last thing that you'll work on, or it's not going to be your lifelong passion.
true.
But therefore, if you don't like, feel free to pivot, right? I mean, but but at the same time, don't there's a fine line between yeah, you have to there's you also have to put in a best effort to try to learn skills, right, as opposed to just pivoting for the sake of pivoting,
Yeah, yeah,
right? I
yeah,
mean there has to be an appreciation of the fact that research, or preparing for job interviews, etc., is hard, is inherently something that's hard and requires patience
yeah,
and sacrifice.
yeah,
So you keeping that in mind, of course, yeah, I mean, if you don't find something interesting, by all means pivot.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Like the learning should be uncomfortable. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're more eloquent than I am. You say you said what I wanted to say in fewer words. Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Like, I think my GRE and TOEFL prep is finally working. Uh, yeah, so how did your schedule look like while you were in your undergrad? Like, how are you juggling acads, research work, and your daily, like, maybe extracurricular activities you are doing? Like, how did you manage it? Like, what did your day look like? Just a random day out of your 4 years.
So a random day out of my 4 years, it was very different for the first 2.5 years, and then very different for the last 1.5 years.
Okay.
My first 2.5 years, I was a very studious person. I was for the most part studying. I was eating my food in the mess. I had not gotten bored of mess food by then.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it was all. I would attend all classes that I could. I would not, yeah. So I was very, very sincere, very, very studious. And then after 2.5 years, basically, yeah, it was not so. So I think in your question you also asked about juggling research work and academics and spare time, right? So research work for me during my undergrad was practically non-existent, as I told you, right? It was, if there's a bachelor BTech project, then I'm doing the BTech project. Otherwise, once that is done, it's not like I'm pursuing a second research project with the professors on the side. I wasn't doing that. So the only two things that I had to juggle were classes and extracurriculars or something, right? So I think in terms of classes, I was fairly confident by the end of my by the end of my 2.5 years of my undergrad, that I know enough, or I'm confident enough that I will be able to take care of my classes, meaning I would be able to do well in these classes, and I don't have to be worried necessarily, or burn the midnight oil every single for every night. I mean, there were nights where I was burning midnight, where I was working, pulling all nighters as well, but yeah, I mean, my interest changed from trying to only be worried, only trying to absorb everything that was in the books that were used for my courses, to trying other things. For example, I started becoming more active in programming websites. For example, cracking, King Code Chef. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's still around, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's still around. Yeah.
Yeah. And Hacker Rank was new at that point of time. So those are the kinds of things that I started occupying myself with more and more. Uh, and I was very confident. It's not like I started slacking off in classes. I was very confident that I would be able to, but as opposed to studying all the time and not doing anything else, I had figured out a way to manage my classes in a very nice way without really sacrificing my grade point averages, something like that. So I could take care of that without being stressed too much about. And in terms of daily day, I think it was very disorganized in some sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you'd wake up. I wouldn't want to have food in the mess by that time. Our interest in, and we were at the old campus. So in our third year, uh, right, 100 meters. I don't know if you've been to the old campus, but
Okay.
but yeah, 100 meters away from the campus, the only, at that point of time at least, the only mall in Patna opened up, P&M Mall, and basically our breakfast was done there, our lunch was done there, and our dinner was done there. So three trips we used to make to the mall to eat this, that, and the other, and yeah, in between, yeah, we'd attend some classes. We Yeah, as I said, I'd figured out how to take care of them. We'd we'd watch a lot of movies. We'd stay up late, watching movies, getting Maggie from the canteen downstairs, etc. So it was a very liberating experience the last 2 years, in the sense that I was certainly not doing poorly on classes. I was doing well in them, but I was also having a lot of fun uh, with friends, and I was yeah, I mean, I was enjoying college life as well, which was good. I mean, yeah, that was very memorable. The last 2 years of my bachelor's were very disorganized, but it was very, very fun.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe if I said, but my schedule was like my like division of years was also like kind of similar. First 2 years, like
Mm.
the JE thing hadn't worn off, and
Exactly,
that
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
continued.
yeah,
And
yeah.
first 2 years, like I didn't have a lot of friends and all. I talked to 2 3 people at max. I like
Mm.
the only thing differed that I didn't eat in mess. I used to order stuff, but
Mm.
except that I used to go to classes daily. Like bring 9.9 SPI every semester, and after a
Yeah,
point of time, like it gets repetitive and you kind of understand the patterns and stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, like you kind of get acquainted. You see the amount of effort people around you, what they put, and you are like,
Absolutely,
yeah, it can,
absolutely,
it,
absolutely. And they're still doing fairly well.
yeah,
So you
exactly,
understand. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I think you mentioned the right thing. You know, the JE preparation effect had not worn out.
yeah, exactly,
So in my 11th and 12th, I used to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, starting, and I continued that in my first semester.
yeah,
But soon enough, I stopped. So
yeah,
yeah, so it's important. I mean, both colors of college life are important,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And also the good point about these grade point averages is, once
hmm.
you bump it up high
Yeah,
enough, then it's very
exactly,
difficult to
exactly,
get it down.
exactly,
So
exactly,
so the average effect is taken hold, and yeah,
yeah,
even if you comparative or relatively don't do as well as you would as the 9.9s,
yeah.
it still stays pretty high.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
So
my
yeah.
last couple of semesters weren't that great. Like just about 9.5 or like just something out of that
That's
sort.
great. See, that's so it's relative, right? I mean,
Yeah.
9.5, if you say it's great, but relatively it's not great, right? As
Yeah,
compared to the
exactly.
9.9s that you're
Yeah,
managing.
exactly.
And frankly, yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it does. I don't want to say it doesn't matter. At least certainly your,
Yeah.
your undergrad's grade point average does matter,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's not that important also.
Yeah.
I think from the perspective of either jobs or even from the perspective of PhDs, they're used as negative filters.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a certain grade point average, they might think of you poorly.
Yeah.
Between a 9.2
Hmm.
or a 9 pointer and a 10 pointer, nobody's really going to grade them or view them differently.
Yeah.
So for grad school, I guess publications matter more. For programming, for your jobs, your performance on the interview matters more. Right. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
a good time. It was a good time.
Yeah, like I kind of aimed at like like masters only, like, and I kind of came to know to people like masters programs. They kind of look at your GPA and
Yeah.
your rank and stuff. Like PhD programs.
Everybody does. So it's not. I'm not trying to say that it doesn't. They don't.
Okay.
But in the priority ordering of what they care about the most, I mean, certainly yes. I mean, grade point average is much more important for masters programs than it is for PhD programs. Certainly, that's true. So I don't want to be saying that it's not important, but for example, your letters of recommendation,
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
can be circumvented. You might have a very poor grade point average,
Yeah.
but maybe you've gotten a letter of recommendation from a person
Yeah.
who I know
Yeah.
and I value highly.
Yeah.
And if that person's writing good things about me, I don't care about your grade point average all of a sudden as a potential person who's looking at your application. So it's very, yeah, it's not as simple as just looking at your grade point average and making a decision. If greater than 9.9, give them admission. If less than 9.9, don't give them admission, right? So yeah, so it's, yeah.
Yeah, and like I came to know like a certain university, like I think I mentioned it before the session to you, like in which I got an admit. That
Mm-hmm.
specific university has a very niche program that takes seven
Mm-hmm.
to eight people every year.
How many people?
7 to 8 people every year.
7 to 8 people every year.
Like
Okay.
they completely fund them for 7 to 8 people, like some completely
Mm-hmm.
fund them for 2 years, and they kind of groom them for a PhD. And
Got
this
it.
year I kind of saw some people on the internet and like Reddit and all saying that like a person who got in, he had a recommender, exactly what you said, a recommender who is a friend of that prof, who like
Right.
whose advisor he was. And
Right.
compared to the other applicants, he wasn't that great, like I wouldn't say, but yeah, the while it like people see you in terms of funding and stuff, like connections really matter. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So
Yeah.
all of these things. I mean, this is not just one occurrence that you're mentioning. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I can tell you of several others that I've seen. That once again, for example, my advisor was looking at at a PhD applicant, and this applicant had a letter from my advisor's mentor,
Okay.
and it was a and basically my advisor basically went so far as saying, I don't need to look at the entire, I don't even need to read his CV anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I want him. So it's very
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
very the relationships and connections and networking really matter a lot.
Yeah, that kind of gives a trust which you like. You don't have to put in a lot of effort before connecting again.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what motivated you like to pursue higher studies, like specifically a direct PhD instead of a master's first?
I see. So I mean, between a master's and a PhD, I'm trying to remember. Um Yeah, I mean, frankly, at that point of time, let me answer the other question first. I mean, what motivated me? I guess, I mean, I was not, I think based on what I told you about my experiences in IIT Patna, I was not sure that I wanted to be a researcher, right? It was almost expected, and it was almost sort of like an obligation that, the quote unquote toppers in the batch would apply for graduate studies, right? Because we could, right? I mean, because of our good grade point averages. So it was out of that, not pressure, but sense that I applied for grad school. And why did I apply for a PhD as opposed to a master's? I realized, my mentors during my internship years, the two internships that I did abroad, they exposed me to the idea that you don't need, if you want to do a PhD,
Hmm.
then you don't need to apply for a master's first. Before that, I was like, how can you apply for a PhD without having a master's? That was my idea, or the notion that I had. But they told me that at least in America, and I'm sure I don't know what is the deal in India, but yeah, I mean, in America you can directly apply for a PhD after your bachelor's, and the I guess the flexibility appealed to me a lot. This idea that basically, if after my masters, or if I once I start working on my research, I realize that I'm really interested in research. And so let's say on the flip side, if I were to do a masters, if I had gone into a master's program and 2 years later I'd realized that I really like it, and I want to do research even more, and I want to pursue a PhD, then I would have to reapply, etc. Then go through the application cycle once again, be subject to random uncertainties, etc., etc. In this way, I would already be in a PhD program, so I could just continue, right? On the other hand, if 2 years later I realize that this is not really good, or I don't really enjoy it as much, then I can exit the program. And for the first 2 years of your PhD, you're basically taking the same courses that a master's student would take. So most universities, you can pretty much graduate with a master's degree. If you, let's say, drop out uh, because you're not interested in research, then you can, as long as you finish and fulfill all the credit requirements that are there for a master's degree, you're pretty much eligible for a master's degree as well. So I was, yeah, I was, this flexibility was attractive to me. Another big reason why I chose graduate studies is I was so much in love with my experience of undergrad. This last 2 years, the fun of last 2 years that I had, that I really didn't want this to stop,
Okay.
and I wanted to continue living this fun college life. Uh, yeah, so that was another big sort of motivator for me to apply for graduate studies. That if I go into work, in a corporate job, then I lose this
Yeah.
feeling of living in a hostel with my friends, and
Yep. True.
basically being kings in our own life. Nobody disturbed us. We did what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
We yeah, we showered when we wanted to. We didn't shower when we so it was a very Yeah, lawless life in some sense.
Yeah. Like right now, I'm in my internship. Like I'm at my 6 month internship, and yeah, staying alone. It has its perks, but it also has a lot of demerits as well. Like
Absolutely,
yeah, and I
absolutely.
feel that I kind of cut short my undergrad like by 6 months. Yeah, and
Mm.
I regret that sometimes when yeah, what can we do? And yeah, but I one more thing I observed that like this is a very I don't know a specific example or like not that generalized, but I saw that when you go for a PhD, the
Mm-hmm.
people in your niche are very like really less in some fields. Like so again, it's the same case as a job. Like you go for a PhD and you don't have a lot of people to talk to because there are so less people working in that area or like
Yeah.
less people from your ethnicity. Like I saw this during my internship at USC. Like I
Okay, can you be more specific? I don't think I understood your question.
like I'm just saying that is it true that in PhD like you wanted to kind of experience your undergrad all over again, right? Like your last two
Mm-hmm.
years, but
Oh,
yeah,
I see.
but what I'm saying is that like because some fields are so niche, like
Mm-hmm.
mostly whatever you end up working is mostly niche, and
Mm-hmm.
the people who of your same ethnicity or your same kind of experiences or
Right,
like
right.
the
So
group kind
yeah,
of
so my
shrinks.
dream crashed when I came to America, certainly, right? I mean, it was not the same as my undergrad
Yeah,
fun
I just
college
wanted to confirm that.
life
Yeah,
that I had. It is a very, very different. You're living by yourself,
yeah,
practically, in an apartment that you're maybe sharing with another grad student.
yeah,
That grad school student has a completely different schedule to yours.
yeah.
You have a different schedule, so you're coming into the house at a different time. They are coming. I had a roommate at USC for at least 2 years out of my 5 years. I didn't see him, and it was not because he was not staying in the same city. I he would uh, come back from office after I had left to office in the morning. So he would basically spend the night in his office, and he would come back at about 11 a.m. or something. I had gone to I would leave for office at about 9:30, so I wouldn't meet him then. And then when I would come back before then, he would have slept in the day during the day, and left for his next all nighter. So for 2 years, I didn't meet him. So it was very different, right? I mean, we were living together, but it was not like we was so
Yeah,
we
yeah,
it was not like I could go for let's go there and have fun, and
yeah,
why don't we go there?
exactly.
So
Yeah,
it's very different. It's not the same. So
yeah,
which was a tragic.
yeah,
It's tragic.
mm,
But at least that was my motivation. I thought I could continue that life.
yeah, yeah,
uh, yeah.
yeah, yeah. That was one of the reasons. Like, yeah, I'm not as favorable to favoring PhD as much as I used to before my internship.
Mhm.
But right now, after
Mhm.
seeing the state of a PhD student,
Mhm.
like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm kind of second guessing my options. That's why I want to choose a master's degree that has an open pathway to PhD, but isn't
yeah.
limited to that.
I think that's a good way to go about it. I
Yeah,
mean, the other thing to think about is masters and PhDs. Masters are generally paid for, except for the exclusive program that you're talking about. For the most part, generally masters are when I say paid for, they're paid for by the student themselves,
yeah,
right?
mm,
Whereas PhDs are generally paid for by the university or by professors. So that, and especially for international students, the financial obligation can be quite significant,
yeah,
right? So yeah, that's another sort of factor to think about as you're thinking about masters and PhDs.
yeah, true. And what made you choose like US unis in like instead of unis in other countries? Like,
I mean, look, I mean, we were the first batch in IIT Patna. We didn't have a lot of
okay,
guidance in terms of diversifying our applications across continents.
mm,
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think I still remember we had emailed somebody in IIT Bombay
okay,
and asked them to send us all the SOPs. They had I mean, in IIT Bombay they had a central repository of all the students who apply for grad school.
damn,
All their statements, uh, all their statements of purposes are kept in one Git repository or something like that. And we asked them for it, and we got access to them. And the some that I saw, they were all for US universities. I mean, there was a huge
oh,
chunk of files. So I applied to US universities. I mean, it was not a very well guided. There was no guidance or we didn't have the luxury of seniors. Uh, we did not even have examples, right? I mean normally as a junior student you can look at what your seniors are doing, where are they applying, and then form your opinions. We had no seniors, right? I mean, which was a good thing and a bad thing, right? There were lots of good things associated with it. There were many bad things associated with it as well, and this was one of the bad things that we. So yeah, I mean, there was no real reason or rhyme or reason as to why I chose US universities. Yeah, I mean, not a very, yeah. I would put it more down to chance or circumstances, as opposed to being a very well thought out decision.
Like I would like to ask this also, like
Oh, hold that thought. I think another thing is my experiences. Yeah, in the absence of extra guidance, the only two experiences of research that I'd had were,
both in US.
were both US universities. So that was the only sort of comfort zone, if you will, right? I mean, Europe, etc., were these unknown entities to me as to what's going to happen, or I was, so maybe that also played into choosing US universities over anywhere else. Yeah.
Like I would like to ask this also, like you were the first batch at IIT Patna, but how did you have the exposure or like the knowledge to or foresight to say apply to the University of Houston during your second year for your second year summer and for USC?
We didn't. So Houston was a MOU.
Okay.
So it was an MOU signed between University of Houston and IIT Patna, and basically the top six, I believe. So the first top two ranked students of, at that point of time we only had three branches. I don't know what is it seen now. There was only computer science, electrical, and mechanical. 40 students each. It was or less than 40 students, I think. I mean, but yeah, I think in total we were 110 odd students in the entire college. That was it. And basically, yeah, top two students of each branch, just like that, got a free internship. In the sense, we didn't have to apply for it. The only thing that we had to do is to ensure that our based on our grade point averages, we were within either top or second, and I think I was second. So I got a Houston internship. I didn't apply for it. The third time I did apply for it. How did I apply for it? I mean, I was just applying. I mean, I don't really remember how did we have the foresight of thinking about or foresight of applying to these universities. But back then, and I'm sure it is now also, there was this trend that I don't remember the origin of this, but there was this trend that en masse, me and my friends would go every day to the computer center. Uh, this was a time when we had no Wi-Fi in hostels, so if we wanted internet, we had to go to the computer center and access things, right? So we would go to the computer center and basically start sending email after email to all professors at all universities saying, here we are interested in a foreign internship, etc., etc. And it was not just me who was doing this. A lot of people were simultaneously going to the computer center, and all of them were. How did this idea emerged? I don't remember. But through these, I think this program struck our eye, Indo-US Viterbi, etc., etc. So in that fervor, I applied to this also, and I got in. So yeah.
Like we would like to know specifics so that we can replicate it. Like right now, IIT Patna needs that right now. Yeah.
I mean, specifics of
like how you kind of the enthu got between all of you, like how very coordinated regarding this stuff. Like right now people aren't motivated at all regarding stuff like this, even
really. Oh, I mean, I also think that this was year 3. Maybe and this is just hypothesis, pure hypothesis. In our first batch, it was not like we had a very well developed internship programs, or the training and placement cell had not formed. Yeah, it formed, really started functioning in the last year, and even then it was the students. It was very, very rudimentary. It was there was no placement season as such. I mean, it was the first time ever that your companies were being contacted to please come to IIT Patna also. So as a result, in our year 3, we were basically left to our own devices for the most part to try to find an internship.
Okay.
right? It was basically down to us, and everybody was scrambling. And
Okay.
in that scramble, somehow we sort of got enthused towards, this is because we didn't have to do anything. We just had to send emails. That was the only application that we had to do, right? It was not like we had to clear any coding interviews or anything. So it seemed like a low risk or low effort activity in some sense. Just send emails and hope to hear back from them. uh, Maybe that caused it. Maybe the lack of a well developed internship program, or maybe that caused it, but I'm not sure. But I think, it's, yeah, while you can't expect everybody at IIT Patna to do it, I'm surprised, and but I hope that at least some subsection of students. Uh, it's always going to be in a minority in general, as the proportion of students who go on to graduate study. That's normal, but there should be that small subsection of students who try to scramble and try to get a foreign internship, or as you very successfully have done, right? In your career, I think you, yeah.
Yeah, I think I was actually kind of well privileged in this because in my year we had
Mhm.
comparatively more people doing this, like committing themselves to research, like
I
compared
see.
to our seniors as well as our juniors. We were a
I
temporary
see.
local maxima
I see.
compared to our senior and junior years. So
I see.
even though we didn't like everyone us, even if we didn't look each other straight in the face like and discuss stuff, but
Mhm.
in some more way or the other, we compete with each other and we try
Oh,
to outdo each other and like we scramble. Yeah, exactly. We scramble and
right.
we try to achieve stuff. Like yeah, I think that sort of stuff needs to be present. Like I think there should be some
Absolutely.
entity that is going to perform better than you or like he's going
Mhm.
to achieve more and you need that as a
Absolutely.
motivator like if
Absolutely. And I'm sure, for example, in our year, you're very right. Somebody else applied for this Indo-US Viterbi program, then everybody else heard about it. Was
yeah
I also need to apply.
yeah
I don't want to get left behind.
yeah
So yeah, you're right. It's you're competing with all of them.
yeah
And yeah, yeah.
yeah
So there's shared learning in some sense, right? You
yeah
don't have to look up for all resources. Somebody else finds something,
yeah
and because
exactly
it's a sense of competition, everybody ends up applying for the same thing.
yeah yeah yeah
Uh,
yeah
yeah,
even for
yeah.
my USC thing, like we got actually you won't believe. Like I think after you, my year was the only year where Viterbi interns got selected. I guess from IIT Patna. We don't
Oh,
have a.
really?
I kind of went through LinkedIn and stuff and all. I couldn't find any senior from IIT Patna between your year and my year who got a Viterbi internship.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and this year two people got selected in my
Oh,
year.
that's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
and I
Good.
applied because the other guy applied.
Hmm.
I saw his
Yeah,
NOC
yeah.
and I was like, yeah, let me submit my NOC too.
Right, 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 right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
even from our juniors, one student got selected for Viterbi. Like,
Oh, excellent.
yeah.
Wonderful. Great year then. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. Like,
And local maxima indeed.
yeah. So, I'm really happy that at least like some people are trying in our juniors as well. Like one, like I said, one of the third years right now got a Viterbi internship after me and the other guy who got in our year.
That's great. That's
So
great.
yeah,
And
and
I think, yeah, now that there's this senior culture, now that their seniors exist, right, year
yeah,
upon year.
yeah, yeah,
I think I'm sure your batch has imbibed or shared what you learned.
yeah,
Some of it has to come from juniors also, in the sense that they should, if they're interested, they'll approach you. But if they approach you,
hmm.
and when people in your batch, then they will, the people who've been successful, or people who tried and were unsuccessful, they'll at least share what they learned. And I guess that, learning does happen,
Yeah,
or does get shared, from senior year to junior year somewhat, right?
yeah,
So hope for more of the same.
yeah,
Hopefully the new juniors, when they become
hmm.
the seniors, they'll be able to guide, and they'll be able to lead by example. What you guys did is effectively led by example, right? You got three.
Yeah,
Uh, this is only for Viterbi. I'm sure there were other. Uh, there might have been other programs as well.
yeah,
But yeah, this is leading by example.
yeah,
People see you. Uh, then you post pictures on Facebook, and people, other students or juniors see, and get inspired, right? That, okay, I also want to aspire for this experience.
hmm.
Um, because it seems to be a cool experience, at least based on the Facebook pictures, right? And this is a very a small subsection of the overall impact that an internship does. But yeah.
Yeah, it's really like fulfilling to know that the chain continues. Like, yeah, it doesn't break in between.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. It shouldn't,
Yeah.
and I don't think it will. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully. And
Yeah.
freshers believe that like going for higher studies like that to a PhD, like some of them believe that it directly correlates to going towards academia and becoming a professor. Like,
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, this is true for many professions, many disciplines. For example, if you are doing a PhD in English literature, then there's a good chance that you will end. There's what does one do after, in a sense that the job market for English researchers is relatively narrower. And I don't really know. I'm just giving you an example. I would be willing to maybe wager a bet that the market for English literature is lesser. So this problem does not exist for computer science and for engineering disciplines in general. Because yeah, I mean, there is no, in fact, from PhD programs in America, once again, a small proportion of it's again a minority, the proportion of people who go on to apply for academic positions, because academic positions are extremely competitive. Um, and at the same time, there's just some people are just not interested, right? So there's interest as well. There's so yeah, so it's if somebody is thinking that you only go for a PhD if you basically, by going for a PhD, you're effectively saying that the only thing that you can become is a professor. That's not at all true. You know, you can become. So yeah, I mean, you can still be a software developer. I mean, some students of mine have become. So I think what happens generally, that the hope is that if you go become a software developer in a company after a PhD, then you get hired at one level up. So you effectively get. So if in Amazon, for example, when I was working as an L4 employee, level 4. But if you go after a PhD, you directly get employed at level 5. So one promotion after. So software development jobs are open. All the data scientists, applied scientists, research scientists, jobs are also open to you, which are not necessarily as open to you if you only have a bachelor's, for example. Uh, yeah, and then of course there's faculty positions, right? I mean, so there's this is a myth that I'd want to dispel. By it is not at all necessary, nor is it statistically true that going for a PhD reduces your employability, that you will only become a professor. If you want to go being a, I would want to effectively think or differentiate between two reasons why you'd want to do a PhD. Reason one is that you already know you're interested in research, that you're passionate about research. You already know that, right? Then of course, if you're interested in research and you're passionate about research, do it. The other reason might be to explore. I don't know what I'm interested in, but I'd like to explore. That is where I fell in, right? So it is an experiential sort of journey, PhD. The good part is that even if at the end of that experience, at least in our disciplines, even at the end of that experience you realize that you don't really enjoy this experience that you had, you can go back to doing the same jobs that you would have been doing after your bachelor's, right? Your software developers, your all your corporate jobs are still open to you, so you don't lose out, except for that you lose out 5 years maybe. So there's certainly an opportunity cost, but it's not like your life is gone in some sense, right? I mean, you can if you are willing to give 5 years for an experience, for the sake of having an experience, then there's no cost in some sense. Your employability is not hit by at all. In fact, your opportunities expand. Because this field of research industry, such as AI labs in Microsoft Research and Google Research and this and that, and of course your academic jobs, professors, etc., or research scientists in universities. The only way you can get them is if you have a PhD.
yeah.
Otherwise, you can't get them. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, yeah, I think professors have a tendency of being verbose, so I think I digress a lot. But once again, getting back to your question, it's a myth.
yeah,
You know, and there's no such thing that you have to become a professor after you do a PhD. So feel free to do a PhD, even if you want to, if you don't want to be a professor. There are many people who do PhDs
yeah.
despite them not wanting to be professors. That's okay.
Okay. Yeah, like I believe that like there are a lot of positions like people which aren't who are even aware of such positions, like even say like there are a lot of research engineer positions and researcher positions which are open to like people who have done an MS or a PhD, and it's not directly open to a BTech graduate. And I believe that
Mhm.
such kind of opportunities your degree does matter. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. It does. It does. It does. It does. Yeah, 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 yeah. So all of these jobs are easier for you to get if you have a graduate degree
Yep.
or a postgraduate degree, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And any specific advice like which may or may not have been covered by like or may like better it may not have been covered by whatever we have discussed so far, like for young researchers, like any specific advice from your side?
So if you are a researcher, if you've decided that you want to be a researcher and you want to go for graduate study, what I would say is that the best thing that you can do is to try to get your name in a publication
Okay.
at a good conference, right? And you don't need to necessarily worry, given that professors at IIT Patna are already publishing in very good venues. So I don't think you need to worry necessarily. So just start working on a project with a professor, and that leads to a publication, and make sure that your name is on it, and whatever you need to do in order to get your name on it. That's the most important thing that you can do as a young researcher if you are indeed sure that you want to go on to be a researcher. uh, so yeah, so as I see it, going back to our discussion before this podcast began, I strongly believe in this idea of regret minimization. You wanting to minimize your any regrets that you might have later on in your life. And what might the regrets be? Maybe one possible regret could be you are working in a corporate job, and you realize, well, if only I had published a paper, maybe, or if only my grade point average was higher, I could have tried that academic world, but
Yeah.
I can't now. So that's one kind of regret. Or the other kind of regret is if you go here, in the academic sphere, and then you realize that if only I had done enough programming practice, then I could have maybe enjoyed the life of a Google software developer, right? Where they have these amazing perks, etc. Right? And in a university, I'm not getting these perks, so that's another kind of regret. Or you can have the perennial regret that if only I had pushed myself harder, I could have opened a startup, right?
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so yeah, so don't have any regrets.
Yeah.
And what that means, and at the end of year 4 of your undergrad, you should be planning. Everybody, researcher or non-researcher, basically any student at IIT Patna or outside of IIT Patna, should be preparing in a way or planning in a way such that all three of these doors are open for you. None of these doors is shut, closed, right? That you can't pass through them. Now, what do you need to do in order to keep these doors open? If you want to keep the academic door open uh, and inviting, the best thing that you can do is to publish. As long as you have a name on a publication, even if it is a second authored or the third author, it's great if you have a first authored paper. It's even better if you have multiple papers, right? But one is good enough, I'd say, right? I mean,
Used to be.
if you don't, sorry,
Used to be.
used to be, yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, things are changing, so yeah. Uh, so of course, I mean, there's going to be some changes, but yeah, I mean, if nothing else, get your name in a publication. Uh, that way, you can ensure that the academic door remains open for you whenever you may choose to exercise it, right? Make sure that you maintain a good grade point average, so that you're not prevented from applying to many grad schools just because you have a poor grade point average, even though your publication record looks great,
Yeah.
right? In the front of corporate jobs, make sure that you get at least one industry internship, right? To see what you like about that life and what you don't like about that life, right?
Yeah.
And of course, getting an internship is also a signal for a future employer. If you have an internship on your CV, and then when you go for a full-time job in a company, you're more likely to have your resume getting picked that this person has been able to secure an industry internship in the past at a good company, so therefore this guy has credentials. uh, so 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 to boil down everything, you should try to publish one paper to keep the academic door open. You should try to get one industry internship to keep the non-academic door open, right? And you should try to open a podcast, which you've already done. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. I mean, I have more detailed advice for PhD applicants. Uh, I think I did not know this, but as I was sharing with you, the most important and often ignored aspect of PhD applications, the most critical, crucial factor that can determine whether you get a PhD admit or not, or for that matter, even a master's admit or not, is whether or not you email people, professors by yourself, right? Whether you contact professors way before your application. So these, you don't need to worry about only emailing them once you've formally applied. No, if you're going to apply in December of this year, start emailing them in August or September, and don't worry about getting replies from them. Just email for the sake of email. It's like a thankless job in some sense, but it's an important job because I think the nature of these admissions is that there's a good chance that your profile will not be looked at just because of the amount of applications that come in. Uh, People may not even be aware that you exist as an applicant if you don't do this additional work of just emailing people and letting them know that, hey, I exist, this is what I'm good at, and I've applied. And do this again and again, because people tend to forget that they're busy with 1,000 things. So this is a, in some sense, I almost think that especially for PhD applications, if you don't email, you're practically wasting your money, your application fees. You can get lucky. For example, I got PhD admits even without emailing anybody, just because nobody told me to do this.
Okay.
So you can still make it, but you should also think about the fact that I had to try it in 2 years to get a PhD. The first year when I applied for a PhD, I applied to 10 schools and I didn't get a PhD from any school. The only thing that I got was a master's from UPenn.
Yeah.
And there also I'd applied for a PhD. I think I'd selected the box which said that if you don't get selected for a PhD, do you want us to consider for a master's application? They said, we'll give you a master's at UPenn. Uh, so my hit rate in some sense, without emailing anyone, was 20 universities and 3 admits across 2 years. In the first year, 10 universities and 0 admits, and in the second year, 10 universities and 3 admits. So it's a really shoddy hit rate in some sense, and I'm saying that this hit rate can be greatly increased if students and applicants do this extra work of emailing professors and sharing their profile and getting feedback and this and that. Yeah, so this is advice specifically for PhD applicants, which is, I feel, it's extremely important. More important, yeah, of course, your profile does matter, but what uses that profile if nobody looks at it, right? I mean, you have to in some sense do that extra work of getting your profile seen or putting it in front of people's faces and look at it. I'm not gonna take no answer. You have to look at it. So yeah.
Yeah, agreed. And like my final question, I think, before wrapping up the podcast, like, what is your most cherished memory of your undergrad? Like, what do you think if you think about your undergrad, what do you remember? Like a pivotal moment or something you kind of remember like all the time.
Hostel life. Yeah, I mean, I think it was a wonderful period of my life. Uh, it's the friendships that you make during your undergrad life, they stay for life, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, there's not one thing. In fact, I did not realize how much I had become attached to IIT Patna. The last day of uh, came, when we were all supposed to move out of our hostels, and our group of friends, one by one, somebody had their train in the morning. The person our group of friends would walk with them to the auto stand and hug so people were crying when friends were leaving, and nothing. I was not getting emotional at that point of time, and my train was in the evening. By that time, everybody had left. I was the only one, and I was still not crying. And for some reason, I reached the train station. I was still not crying, and I got on the train. I was still not crying, and the train started leaving, and without any explanation, I started sobbing. These big tears, and I couldn't stop. For the next 15 minutes, I just kept on sobbing, and it was not provoked. It was not as if I thought of something all of a sudden. It was just that act of that train started leaving the station, uh, that I just couldn't all of a sudden control myself, and I just wept for a long time. So it was a very beautiful time. I mean, there's not one thing. I mean, I can tell you 1,000 things, and then we'd have to talk for the entire day. But yeah, in general, this life, you so far before your college, you're living inside under the protection of your parents, right? They're taking care of you, and this is the first experience, at least for me. It was, and for many others, it was the first experience of figuring out things for yourself as an individual, right? And trying to live by yourself with people, new people, and there's a certain beauty to that. You develop this amazing communal mindset, or you learn how to live with people, and yeah, it is. Yeah, I highly cherish. There's not. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think there's one thing. I mean, I can, yeah, as I said, I can tell you a lot of those things, but I don't think those things would be good for a podcast, especially one that's being released media. But yeah, I mean, I think it was, and I'm sure it's the same with you, and I'm sure it's the same with everybody else. Everybody has these memories that stay for life. It's a unique time, and it's not going to come back. So you might as well enjoy it. Enjoy it as much as you can before it ends, because you're gonna miss
Yeah.
it once it ends.
Yeah, already started missing it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
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 Like, what is the closest you have come to like replicating it? Your undergrad. Which phase of your life would you say came closest to replicating the sort of experience you had in an undergrad? Like,
I mean, anytime our college friends meet, for example, I mean, some of it comes back.
okay,
Anytime yeah,
okay.
I mean, most of the people that from my friends, of course, everybody was my friend, but yeah, my group,
Hmm.
a lot of my people from my close friend group are in Seattle. They're
Oh,
working in Seattle, and so every time I go and meet with them, it's all, we go back to having the same conversations and making fun in the exact same way that we used to make when we were in college. So it's like, the years have passed by, but we are still making fun of the exact same things that we were talking about 12 years ago. So yeah, that is the
yeah.
yeah. Of course, it's not to say that life has, I mean, life is still good, it's still beautiful, touch wood, right? I mean, but that was a very different kind of an experience, right? I mean, that you can only have when you are in a hostel. uh, and yeah, so and I, of course, I'm biased, and I'm certainly going to say that you can only have that experience in IIT Patna. uh, but that's just me. But yeah, so to everybody, I mean, I think, yes, I mean, I say all of this: regret, minimization, this, that, and the other. I think I forgot to mention about the most important piece of regret, right? Which is, if you don't enjoy this time well enough, you're going to regret it certainly, right? Because this time is so. Do all of this, try to make a good career for yourself, which I'm sure you all of you and everybody else at IIT Patna will go on to have. But don't forget to have fun. right? I mean, don't with these friendships are more important. They will stand by you and they'll be with you in the long life that lays in front of all of you, and yeah, make sure that you cultivate them and enjoy them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, now that as I was saying, I mean, I guess one memory that I can share with you is, World Cup 2011. The final we were watching. I guess, I mean, have you been to the old campus? Have you seen the old hostel building? No.
Mm,
Yes. So there was we had placed a projector in the right in front of the hostel, and everybody was it was open, right? I mean, people could see, but it was basically a hostel. So some people were partially clothed, some people were fully clothed, and then people were sitting the way they were sitting. It was things were, and yeah, it was a fun night. India won, and we were running about, in our state of clothing that we were, unconstrained, running here and there, climbing basketball, the hoops, the sort of board, climbing up on that and shouting and this and that and going to places where we shouldn't go. But yeah, it was a good night. It was a good night. And hopefully, tomorrow we get to do that again. Or yeah, tomorrow, right? Tomorrow is the Champions Trophy final.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
hope, uh, yeah. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah, nice. Yeah, beautiful. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think we can conclude our podcast here. Like it was really memorable for me
Absolutely.
also. Yeah, like let me just stop it. Yeah.